a very good afternoon and thank you for tuning in. This is the Monday edition of Market View powered by the Eswatini National Petroleum Company. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Lungelele Magagula. Today's focus on the show today, we're focusing on benefits in investing in stocks. We want to find out from our in-house economist, Sanel Bia, if it's worth it in investing in shares. We also want to know about steps to follow when investing in the Eswatini Stock Exchange and international companies such as the New York Stock Exchange, London Stock Exchange, etc. Stay tuned for this discussion later on the program. And in our business news today, we have the first big head of business transformation, Eswatini, shedding light on the government, private sector and tertiary institution skills development program aiming to tackle unemployment and migration issues. We'll connect with Sbia again for this afternoon's market analysis, which is our final segment of the program. For now, let's take a look at business news. First big head of business transformation, Eswatini, announces government, private sector and tertiary institution skills development program aiming to tackle unemployment and migration issues. Supported by the Prime Minister's office and various ministries, the project begins in July with funding secured from multiple stakeholders.
Everyone who has graduated 10 years ago, we need to get them into this program because we have realized that the tertiary institutions have been producing people for employment while the employment sector is saturated. Now this program is basically going to take all those people who are already qualified in their different sectors, push them into an incubation program where we'll incubate them to be entrepreneurs. Once they have been found competent on entrepreneurship, they will sit for assessment. It won't be just a training to get along, but it will be training with tighter protocols in terms of assessment or examination. Once they pass that exam or that assessment, they will be taken to the next level where they will be mentored. Under the mentorship, they will be attached to our members at different businesses which exist in Swaziland so that they can be mentored throughout the process. Even on that stage, they will have to write assessments or examinations to confirm their competences. They will have to be given the startup kit. Startup kit will include finance for their projects or for their businesses and still be attached to an existing business unit with the related experience in that space. FirstPick is fully supporting all programs of government. Hence, on the industrialization part, we requested that we implement this project jointly with the Ministry of Tingundla, where we'll bring in the 59 Tingundlas of the country and get them to identify industrial hubs within their Tingundla. From that industrial hubs, we will be placing our students, if you like, or the business people who might have converted from the different graduates. What we expect from those different industrial hubs within each Ingundla across the country is that in one hall, you will find different lines of production which are similar to each other. I'll make an example. We will adopt the principle which is implemented by NAMPOD, where it says when there is enough supply of commodities within the country, they block those types at the border such that they don't come through. We'll do the same. Let's say we have students who can deal with the Toyota vehicle engine. They can strip it, overhaul it, and we have another set which can deal with the suspension. We have another set which can deal with the body in terms of panel beating and other required spray painting or whatever. So we'll put these people in a straight line, then go and purchase the Toyota components in Japan and import them into the country so that we can assemble the Toyota in the country, like what South Africa is doing.
And now for international story, Europe needs to overcome structural headwinds to growth. Director of the IMF European Department, Alfred Kamar, highlights the policies to support faster economic growth through a stronger EU single market.
Europe's economy is turning the corner. Inflation rates are returning to target and growth is gradually strengthening. In light of the pandemic and the energy cost shock, this is a remarkable achievement. But it also puts the spotlight on what comes next. What should Europe do to grow faster? The EU lags behind the US in per capita GDP by about 30%. And at recent growth rates, it would take 80 years for Europe to catch up. That's 3 generations of Europeans missing out on potential opportunities. So what does it take to change this materially? Just to cut the time in half to 40 years, Europe would need to grow by 0.3 percentage points faster annually than forecast. This is of course a challenge, and Europe needs to do even better. So what should be done? In the EU, policies that support greater integration through its single market are key. They include 1. Advancing the capital markets and banking union. This will raise returns on savings, expand businesses' access to the financial instruments they need, and improve capital allocation. Countries outside the EU also need to deepen capital markets or create the conditions to attract investment. Advancing the capital markets union will also help make the EU's business sector more vibrant. With easier access to funding and with fewer barriers to the region's markets, companies can scale more easily. 2. Strengthen Europe's internal trade in goods and services. Just by lowering the remaining barriers to the single market by 10%, the EU would raise output by 7%. This measure alone would raise growth close to the illustrative 0.3% higher growth per year that I mentioned earlier. Industrial policies have recently been proposed as another way to raise growth. They benefit some firms, but hurt others. And as such, they will not solve the problem of lower productivity growth. A deeper single market will. 3. A more productive Europe needs a larger pool of qualified workers. Right now, 80% of EU firms say that a lack of skilled workers is holding back investment. Europe needs to invest in education and skills to use new technologies, support women to stay in the labor market, and make it easier for workers to move across borders. With a unified labor market, talent would more easily meet opportunity. And 4. Europe will not close the income gap without technological innovation. This requires incentives and investment around research and development, alongside stronger links between businesses and universities. Together, these measures will foster more capital that's better allocated, create a larger, more efficient labor supply, and give firms across Europe the environment they need to grow into global players.
It's 8 minutes after 2, and that's it for our business news this afternoon. We'll go for an ad break. When we come back, we connect with Mr. Sibiya. We want to discuss the benefits of investing in stock markets.
Sabadani ukuthi njengaloku sivile sive sikhulume
Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. You're still watching Market View, the Monday edition, powered by the Eswatini National Petroleum Company. We want to connect with Mr. Sibiya right about now. We want to discuss the benefits of investing in stock markets. We want to talk to the beginners, the people that have no idea what shares are. Mr. Sibiya will explain that today. A very good afternoon, Mr. Sibiya. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. We want to talk about the benefits benefits and the disadvantages of investing in shares, particularly for people that have no idea what shares are, what the stock market is. How do I start investing in shares? Do I need to consider options such as investing on the Eswatini Stock Exchange or even international companies such as the New York stock or the London stock?
Thank you, Lulu. Good afternoon to the viewer. So when we are talking of stocks and investments in the stock market, basically what we are saying is you are buying a unit of ownership in a company. So the way this happens is, companies in a way as a method of fundraising or really just raising money to fund their growth, to fund their operations, and to fund quite a lot of things, would actually either go to a bank or find an investor who's willing to pay to give them that money, and the stock market is one of the modalities of doing that. So basically, what you are buying is an ownership in a company, and that's what we are looking into. So what you need then is to have a broker. So domestically, we have a couple of brokers if you want to trade on the Eswatini Stock Exchange, and then internationally, there is quite a number of EMA stock brokers. So those are the mediums through which the investor will buy their shares. So in Eswatini, you either go to African Alliance or you will go to AlphaZ, and that's where you will find those are the brokers, the two authorized brokers that can go buy and sell for you on the stock market. So really, you're not going to go to the stock exchange and buy the shares there, but you will have to instruct your broker to go and buy those shares for you, even sell those shares for you. So same thing with trading globally, you would need a broker. So right now we're in the age of digital technologies where there is quite a lot of brokerages online. So I would say, before you move into any site setup in the stock market, make sure you go for a broker that is renowned, that a broker that you can be able to follow, trace, and just be able to trace their registration documents and all of those requirements, because there's a lot of these fly-by-night schemes that we see happening, and people losing a lot of money. But that's the one thing about trading in stocks, it does come with risks and rewards. So when we are talking of investing in stocks, what you would do is you would just buy that stock, or you just go buy a share, probably a Nedbank share in the Eswatini Stock Exchange through your broker, be it AlphaZ or African Alliance, and then you buy that stock just for the dividends. So we'd call you a dividend investor. You are just buying the stock so that you have your dividend. So every time the company shares dividends, as you commonly see them being declared online on the papers and all over, then you get at the shelf, that money gets deposited into the account that you have with your broker, which you can then again buy it, and really you can then tell your broker to deposit it into your bank account so that you can use those funds. So what you need to have is an account with the broker. So you go to African Alliance and open an account with them, or AlphaZ, open an account with them. So they're going to handle all of your shares and all of your investments then. And then we have other modalities of investing. There are people who you invest because you do trust that the company is going to grow over time. So we call that a buy and hold type of strategy. You just buy the stocks, and then probably you will like, okay, for example, I'll make an example. You buy FNB stocks because probably you see that FNB will be growing, or you buy a Nedbank stock because you know that Nedbank will be growing over time. And then whereas that share price increases over the years, as the value of the company increases, then so does the value of the shares. So that's how you'll be making money. So that's more of a long-term strategy. And then we can have what is happening now commonly, where people are trading, just speculating. You're buying a company, knowing that now once it gets to that level, I'm then going to sell it, and then it gets back to this point, I buy and then I sell. So that's how people make money off of the stock market. But you kind of need to be a renowned investor, just to know what trends to follow and which companies to go into. And then we could also have that long-term strategy, where you're just buying long-term, and then the money keeps being reinvested, and then you are buying new shares. Or you could be a speculator. So when you are talking of a speculator, we're not talking about a person who trades, like I'm waiting for a high and low and then I'm selling. There are people who buy shares when, a company is listed and then they just hold on to them for a while they're waiting for the price to shoot up, and then afterwards they then are going to sell those. We see that happening a lot with IPOs. So when a new stock is listed in the stock market, it's called an initial public offering. So that's an IPO. So most people will be always on the lookout for IPOs with the speculation that we know that this company is actually going to grow. And then once the share price reaches that level, then I'm coming out. So that they are those risks and benefits. You could speculate and then you would lose a lot of money. You speculate on a company and then it just doesn't perform as well as you thought it was going to perform. So then you are losing money there. But you could speculate and you could make money. So that's why we need to always be cautious when we are investing in stock markets, because it does come with risks. So that's how it works domestically. Lulu, maybe if you'd have some follow-on questions before we move on to the international stock markets and how you trade them now to make sure that you don't lose a lot of money.
Yeah, I just want to ask Mr. Sibiya, how much should a beginner have, money to be able to buy shares or even invest in stock markets?
Really, there are no set limits on how much you should have. It depends on the share prices and the amount of shares that you probably just want to buy. For example, if you go into the Eswatini Stock Exchange database, and then you are going to see there on their website, there's shares for 15 rands per share, and then the others trading at 150 per share. So it basically depends on how much you want to invest and how much you really have. But then you also have to factor in the brokerage fees and all of those into consideration. So rule of thumb would be, just make sure you can get at least 100 shares in a company so that the costs of doing it is really not that bad. I mean, that's the case of our Eswatini Stock Exchange, but really there is not much. There isn't a limit. With even your 250 rands, you could go and buy so many shares there. Like we are saying, there are some that are going for 150, and then there are some that are going for 15 rands. Yeah, it just basically depends on how much you want to spend, but there really is no limit.
I wanted to talk about the differences between investing locally on the Eswatini Stock Exchange and investing in international markets such as the New York stock market and the London stock market.
So what we are seeing there is, the level of activity in those stock markets. If you go to London, you go to New York, you will see that, there's the stock markets, they are very, very much active. They are moving on a daily basis compared to when you are coming back home. You will see that, our stocks are really not that much moving. So what we have is dividend investors for the most part. People just buy their shares so they get dividends at the end of the day. So there isn't that much movement in terms of seeing share prices moving up and down. So our domestic stock market becomes one of those, let's say, a safe haven for when the economy is performing well. Companies are going to be declaring dividends. So you're not suffering much losses in terms of the volatility in share prices. But when you go to those international stock markets, that's where you'll find the big companies. So number one, there's always things that are moving and shifting the markets. So you got to understand that when you're investing in those markets, you could sleep today, probably you've invested 2,000 rands, and then you wake up tomorrow, the market has turned, but still you'll have those number of shares, but it's the value that will have actually gone down. So there is that the volatility there that we see, but also it also then becomes on the broker that you are going to use. Like we've said, to invest locally, you use African Alliance and Alpha. SZ. So those are the two brokers that you're going to use. But if you want to invest internationally, then you have to find there's a number of brokers that are available online. And that's where we usually urge people to really do their due diligence there, because there is virtually a plethora of options, and you find that there are those black sites that are just there to scam people and all of those things. So just make sure you find a broker that can actually get you into that stock market, and we are now living in that type of setup where we have quite a lot of these available online, but we just need to make sure that you find one that is registered and regulated in a country somewhere before you put your money in there, so that at least you have some semblance of protection should, things go bad.
All right, just 1 minute, Mr. Spear, before I let you go. Do I need to consider things before I buy my shares? Do I need to consider things such as what is my purpose of buying shares or investing in stock markets? Should it be for purposes for retirement purposes, or just creating new income streams?
I think that's a very beautiful question. The way when you buy shares, in a way, you are essentially creating what we call passive income. That's income that's just going to come to you when you haven't worked. But what then your investment decision are also going to be guided by is what you want to use the money for. That's actually going to tell you whether you want a buy and hold strategy. Let's say you're buying now, you'd want to cash out when you are 60, right? But then that would mean you need to find a big established company, company that has some sort of stability to know that you can buy and hold for this very long. And then, there is money to be made in the stock market where you can actually buy and sell the shares, not just play around with the shares, buy this company today, sell it, and buy another company tomorrow. But that one just requires you to learn and go into the stock market with the understanding that there is that volatility, and you can lose and then you can also gain. So we need to be quite careful of that. We are coming into it thinking that it's all going to be rosy and we are all going to make money. No, it's not a get rich. It's not a get rich quick scheme. It takes some learning. It takes skills. It takes quite a lot for you to become an avid trader and be able to make money off of the stock market. People have made as much money and they've lost as much money at the same time. So you've really got to know your investment decisions while you're investing. And then also think of the strategies that you want to put together. And then that's how we can build a very beautiful portfolio.
Thank you so much, Mr. Spear. Thank you for that information, especially that will help beginners who want to invest shares or invest in stock markets. Let's go on for an ad break. Nasbuya, we'll come back with Mr. Spear for the market analysis.
Be sure to catch Business Watch every Wednesday between 2 p.m. to 3 p.m, where we feature the latest updates on business news, market trends, and exclusive interviews with industry leaders, as well as insights on emerging small and medium enterprises in the commercial sector. Business Watch, your business leader.
Ujala masada mahle kunathi
Sabatandi ukuthi njengalokhu
sifile sive sithi khulumeni.
Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. You're still watching Market View powered by ENPC. We want to take a look at the market's performance this afternoon with Mr. Spear. Yes, Mr. Spear, afternoon again, once again, and welcome to the program. As for now, currencies, last week the rand because of elections in South Africa. How is it performing this Monday?
Afternoon once again to the viewers. So what we are seeing on the currency front is, the rand or the lilangeni is actually holding a bit steady, considering what we have seen with the ANC really just opting for a government of national unity instead of really just going for a straight-on collision. So what we are seeing there is the rand, the lilangeni has actually gained against the dollar and the euro, and also it has actually just gained a bit against the Japanese yen. So yeah, the markets are steadying up in the domestic front.
Okay, so moving on to commodities. Last week, gold was performing quite well. Today, it's trading at 2,300. Take us through these figures.
So what we are seeing with gold, and probably the story across the board, we are seeing, markets are still a bit cautious, even though, last week we saw the European Central Bank actually just cutting interest rates for the first time. So we somehow thought that the markets were just going to follow that. But what we are waiting to see this week is what is going to be the stance coming out of the US. We know that the Federal Reserve Bank is meeting this week, and same thing with London. The Bank of London is also meeting this week. So just to give the markets a good picture of where things are going to go in terms of the interest rate. It's in the US and also, in London. So that's why we are seeing gold just holding steady there, still just awaiting to see what is actually going to be the outcome of the Federal Reserve meeting, and also awaiting inflation numbers to come out in the US. So it's a very busy economic calendar this week. So the markets are coming in with that bit of a freeze and just watching the markets. But when we're looking at oil, we are seeing oil just climbing up, just on the touch of the 80 mark. So that's basically, we are trying to anticipate it's going into summer in the US, so the markets are going to be dealing with that, just trying to see if there's going to be that improvement in demand, more especially for transportation and for oil. So that's why we are seeing oil just trying.
International market, starting with the European market. How is it performing today? We understand that the elections are ongoing, and France President Emmanuel Macron called a snap national vote. Did this affect the markets in any way?
So yeah, let's start in Europe now that we've mentioned the Macron story and the overall vote in the Euro region. So what we are seeing there is stocks really just freezing a bit, because you know that overall in the European Parliament, it is estimated that the far-leaning left is going to get a lot of support, is increasing its supporting the European freeze. And also at the same time, what we are looking into is this very rapid call for so that has actually sent the CAC way below the 8,000 mark. But again, there's also a mix of awaiting that, that very important Bank of London, Bank of England meeting this week, and also just waiting inflation data to come out in London. So that's why we are seeing the numbers going that way. Again, in the US, the mood there, when in the US, the mood is not a good one there, because we're still awaiting the Federal Reserve Bank meeting to come and show us the numbers, whether they are going to really start cutting down on interest rates right about in September-ish or so. But, markets are just waiting there. So what this story is showing us now is, whether we like it or not, it is the US that is leading the pack, because we somehow thought the beautiful news coming out of Europe were going to replay and reverberate across markets, but it seems they're just not, in terms of the interest rate. So the whole world is still awaiting to see what is going to happen in the US. So in the meeting tomorrow and Wednesday is very important. That's what the markets are going to be looking out for. And also as we are waiting for inflation data to come out in the US later on in the week. So that's why we are going to see, that's what the markets are acting this way. And then if you move on to Asia as well, what we are seeing in Asia is that story where there's a bit of movement in Japan. Japan closed on a positive today. So that's purely because, if you look at the GDP figures that came out of Japan, there was somehow the contraction was not as bad as initially thought it was going to be. So that now somehow drove markets up and just gave markets that boost. Same thing that we are seeing with China trying to really just, make gains off of that electronic vehicle market. So that's why we are seeing that marginal movement there, and also coupled with, there's those movements to try and show up the property sector in mainland China. But, the market's still not doing very well on that one. And then in South Africa, what we are seeing there is, markets still just trying to read and see what the government of national unity is going to look like. So as we are still awaiting those news to come out, you will see that markets are somehow not taking things in good stride. We know there's a government of national unity, but we don't know what it's going to look like. And then coming into the local markets, we see the Eswatini Stock Exchange again, it's way after dividends season. So the Eswatini Stock Exchange is a bit stable there on the 496, on the 479.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Spear, for that analysis on the market's performance this Monday afternoon. We've come to the end of our program. Lomuhla, it was powered by the Eswatini National Petroleum Company. Do join us once again tomorrow at exactly 2 p.m. Have a lovely day.